Welcome everybody to the DNM podcast, episode 5. I'm Maddie Cole and today I'm joined by the very much alive Hayden. This episode is brought to you by BlendVec, the in-car blender. BlendVec is a novel, expensive blender for your car. Its 75ml capacity makes it convenient and compact. Simply plug it into the adapter, sold separately, and plug it into your cigarette lighter for quick and easy smoothies. Breakfast in the car, save at least 3 to 4 minutes every day. That's 12 hours a year. What would you do with those 12 hours? Buy now for a 400-page book with a 13 smoothie recipe, including banana and berry, banana and chocolate. Also available is a new direct model that attaches directly to your crankshaft. Take off from an intersection and simultaneously blend your breakfast in 3/8 of a second. Thank you to BlendVec for sponsoring this episode. Just a reminder before we start this week that these are just our ideas, thoughts and opinions, and we'd like to hear yours. So hit us up on social media at the DNM podcast to discuss further topics or ideas relating to this one. So Hayden, welcome back.
Welcome, thank you.
We're a little bit pressed for time because I've had a few technical difficulties, but just a brief reflection on last week. How do we feel? How do you think it went? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I had high hopes for advice, to be fair. I thought I had better advice than what I thought I gave, to be honest, but no, I enjoyed it, man. It was good, and all advice is good advice, and maybe it's all bad advice too. I don't know. What do you reckon?
No, I enjoyed it. I think kind of like in my role as a teacher, I think if one of those things goes through to someone, I think that makes it worthwhile. So I think we're going to take that kind of perspective. I don't think we necessarily aim to change the world or change our lives, but just sharing some ideas, maybe it will spark something in someone and then it makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, definitely.
That's my personal take on it.
Yeah, I listened to it and I was like, it sounds like I'm the only listener because I keep telling you guys every week that I'm listening to it, but yeah, when I re-listened to it, I was like, oh man, I'm sure there's better like nuggets of life that you could really deliver to someone. And but to be fair, it was from my own experience. I was giving you what I thought were the best pieces of advice that I'd been given. So yeah, like you say, man, hopefully someone out there hasn't heard any of the 4 things that I said and they're like, yeah, that's good advice.
Or their parents say it and then they're like, oh well, they've also said it, my parents are saying it, so maybe there's some validity in it. Yeah,
so yeah, like I say, man, I had high hopes. I it is what it is. Don't know what the people out there think it is.
We'd like to know though, so hit definitely. Us up. So today's topic, it's a big one. It's a big one. This week's topic is death, and I have a bit of a story as to how it came to be. And so I chose the topic this week. I'm the Maverick, if we can still use that terminology.
Yeah, we definitely can still use it.
So this topic literally landed on my driveway. I must admit, I was struggling to think of something, and this topic landed on my driveway. So on the weekend, I was walking out to my car, and then I happened to notice this bird, like a little sparrow, little common brown sparrow, lying on its back on my driveway. And I kind of had a look. I thought it was dead because it was just lying on its back, but I could see it was breathing a little bit. So I was like, oh, poor little guy. So, I'm an animal lover, I think. So I picked it up and, I thought maybe it was a bit hot and had like dehydrated. So I gave it a bit of water. So like splashed some water on it.
Yeah.
And for the most part, before I got there, it was just straight lying on its back, eyes closed, just barely breathing. And I splashed a little bit of water and it kind of seemed to
respond
a little bit, yeah. Like
or was it drowning?
It kind of like, I think it might be drowning a little bit. It like seemed to flail around. Which I took as a sign of having a bit more life to it. And then as the day wore on, I probably looked after it for about an hour, coming to check on it every now and then. I just kind of left it out the back just to see what happened, and it was not looking good. Like he would flail around, but it seemed almost that his neck might have been broken because his head just stayed in one place where his body kind of rolled around, rotating around the head, almost as if the head was moving independently, and it wasn't really doing much. It was barely breathing. It was really unwell. Like you could tell, like it was just a matter of time. And so I had this moment where I was like, what do? Do I just leave it and kind of let it probably die? Because I'd looked after it for about an hour and it wasn't getting any better. And it got to the point where it just lay on its back and was just twitching the legs and just hardly breathing. And it just did the same thing for like 20 minutes. So I was like, oh no, this is not getting any better. Like I wasn't just stunned and hit a window and was like, oh no, I'm all good. It was properly on the way out. So I thought, what do? Do I just let him keep going and suffer, or do I do something about it, And I had this real moment.
Misery.
Yeah, and I had this real moment, and then I decided, no, I'm going to do something about it. Like this is this is not getting any better. This is cruel, like just to let it eke its way out of life, and it looked really poorly, and I'm sure there's no hope. So I got a bit brave, and I killed it.
Oh man,
it's rough. It's a bit rough. I mean, I'm a city slicker, so this stuff is a bit rough. But I felt justified, and I felt that was the best thing for the time. I mean, I felt pretty bad doing it because I'm by no means a chicken killer or anything. Or, I'm not trained in that kind of art, but I just had to do it, I think, and. It was quite interesting that I had to morally get over it. I eat meat, so obviously everything is killed in that way. But for me to do it by my hand was quite a thing. Have you had anything like that?
Yeah, well, I'm the opposite to you, man. I grew up in the country, so I wouldn't say killing things was a natural progression of life skills or growing up or becoming a man or anything. But I've got a few instances where I've had to kill a few things to put them out of their misery, and it's never nice, man, especially if it's something you're attached to, like a dog or a cat, or like something that's, I guess, like closely related to your little brother.
I think
it gave me leak though, so survival of the fittest.
I have this thing morally about eating meat and stuff, and I think there is a real disconnect about like farm to plate type stuff, and people got no idea what happens in between, and so I feel like I almost need a bit more of that because I eat meat. I used to be vegan for a little while. I dabbled with that, but I eat meat now, and I feel like I need more of attachment to where it comes from. But it was just quite interesting, and that's why I decided to talk about death, because I had this little moment of death on my weekend, and then it made me think a bit about it as a topic, and I thought, actually, I've got some stuff to say, and there's some interesting things about death, and and it's one of those topics people don't talk about. Like, no one sits down and goes, oh, hey, when I die, this, and this, or what happens when you die. It's not a common topic,
Yeah. That's the thing though too. When they usually when it is a topic, it's usually at the point when it becomes too late. So it's like someone's terminally ill, or they're in a position where the outcome is bleak, and they're like, well, I've got to. And then the people who want to talk about like, when I die, I want to do this for my funeral and plan this and that, and everyone else is like, oh, you can't think like that. You need to push through, and it's like, well,
or maybe if you're really unwell and you're an older age, you get mental health issues, and then you can't even think about it properly, and you kind of lose your own mind. But also, it's so fascinating about death that it's one constant for everyone. Everyone will die at some point. It's not like Jeff Bezos is gonna
exactly live forever because he's got
so everyone dies, and then we're quite disconnected with it. It's kind of shunned away. You don't talk about it. If your work colleagues, someone's died, you don't go around saying, oh, I heard your mother died the other day. How was it? You just kind of avoid it or change topic.
Yeah, you just want to and that's a common thing. Like people go, oh, someone died. Oh, I'm here to support you. Like that's the common go-to, and like there's nothing more deep and meaningful about that. It's like, oh, great, I've got lots of people who support me, but they're not here when I'm crying myself to sleep, and
or they like, oh, we'll support you, we'll help you. It's like, okay, well, can you? And then, oh no, I can't. It's death. It's too hard to deal with. So such a constant, and nothing prepares you for facing death. I think, in terms of yourself or maybe loved ones. Like no one teaches you how to cope with it or deal with it. But it's constant for everyone. It's always in our life. But then we're also kind of removed from it. So it's this weird dichotomy of we're always facing it and we always have it, and it's a constant. But then we also don't really deal with it and don't talk about it and put it to the side.
Yeah. So I think it's a good topic, man. Like even just on the you're saying that you had to kill the bird. Like I've killed chickens and like possums and cats and all sorts of stuff. And like from my point of view, man, like when we had to do it, like we had to put down our dog Tyke because he got arthritis and basically couldn't move. He ended up just living on our deck because he couldn't get up or down the deck and stuff. And then one day he fell off, and then pretty sure that I think the vet in ISA was like, oh, he's not going to make it, but basically he'd broken his back or something like that. So we had to put him down, and for me that was good because like we got to talk about death a little bit. And my mum was like, it happens to everybody. Not everything lives forever, and I was just like, oh, he's been my dog as long as I could remember at the time. And she's like, in dog years, he's almost 80. He's like, you wouldn't try and save your nan if she was terminally ill and she's had a good life and he's had a good life. So it was good. Like the discussion was good, and then coming from a farm background and having animals and pets and stuff that died a lot, it was a bit more common. Not to say that we talked about it any depth, but you just knew that it was a part of life.
Yeah.
You know, that things live, things die, and you know that's
life
the way
goes on.
Yeah, and things keep going. So there's a new season around the corner. More lambs come. That happens every year.
I think and if we think historically as well, nowadays modern times, death is really not as common as it used to be. Like you think.
Oh yeah, definitely.
300 years ago, when there was no antibiotics and things, and infant mortality was just through the roof. Like people always dying around you, and nowadays, you know, it takes some real effort to die sometimes.
Basically, eh?
So yeah, it's quite interesting that for all of human history had to deal with death, and then now it's like, oh well, you can live to you're like 120, and you know you're no longer die at 35 because you don't have any teeth type thing. So it's interesting, and that's why I picked it. And I have to talk about this because I don't quite know how to unpack it, but I used to follow a subreddit called Watch People Die. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No, I haven't.
So I'm
actually relatively new to Reddit, eh? I've only just picked it up in the last couple of years.
Fantastic, and also horrendous in both sense. But Watch People Die used to be a subreddit. It's not a thing anymore, and it used to have videos and images of people actually dying, ranging from like freak accidents, like glass falling from a skyscraper to like cut someone in half, to like Mexican drug cartels like beheading people, to just the most horrendous stuff you've seen. But I used to watch it, not often, but maybe once a fortnight I'd go through it. And I think for me, I did it because, and it sounds so morbid and so disgusting, but I did it because I felt like I was so disconnected from death that I almost had to see it to realize what being alive was. Because, you know, I do my day-to-day, I walk to work, I do my job, I go home, I eat a delicious dinner, and then I'm done. But, you know, I think I'm disconnected from my ancestry of people dying and things, and it made me appreciate life a bit more, I think. I don't quite know how to describe it or unpack it, but I felt almost like I had to watch it. It was really weird. It was like almost like a basic human instinct. Like
a car crash where you just can't look away kind of thing, or you just felt the need to watch it to
feel compelled,
to feel like you were alone. I haven't seen it. I have watched a few things where like natural disasters and events occur, and you go and watch them, and you can clearly see people dying, and you just think, like, even though you're seeing it and seeing is believing, it still doesn't make it feel any realer, if that makes sense. And like you say, people will go through their daily lives. At any given time, you could die. Like, you'll walk out on the street and bus hit you, or a car, you jump in your car and drive somewhere, and you know,
brain aneurysm,
anything, and people don't understand that. And I think when they do see it, they might begin to understand it. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like, it's like when that guy shot up Christchurch earlier this year, and he put it out on social media, and everyone got to see it live. And when you watched it and you seen it, even then it still didn't feel real, even though you knew it was real time that was happening. It still almost felt like it was a movie, even though it was like that was definitely happening. And we found out later on it happened, and they got rid of it pretty quickly, which is good. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like, death is definitely deep. Like, I enjoy the Egyptians' take on it, is that it's actually better than life, and so they would prepare themselves for death because it lasted longer, and so they would
got to take your stuff with you, your cats.
Yeah, like, I like that idea. Not to say if it's true or not, but it just kind of means like, oh, maybe
it's not all over.
Yeah, maybe like if you're having a rubbish time in your actual life, it's all good because there's potentially something better afterwards.
Yeah, I'd counter that in a way by saying, if you're someone like thinking about suicide and you're thinking like, oh, if I end it now, I'll have a better time later, I think that's probably a bad thing, because then you're more inclined to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas my point of view is, although I like the idea of a heaven and a, you know, Egyptian, or like a Valhalla, like everyone goes to a party at Skovengard or whatever it's called. Actually, I think that's a Skyrim thing, but anyway.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
That it's just over, man. Like, you die, lights out, nothing happens. And this segues nicely to my next point, which was like what we think happens when we die. And so like I'm saying, for me, I think lights out, that's it, over. And in some ways that's maybe quite bleak and almost sad, but in some ways I actually think that's beautiful, because it means that I will try to live my best life here while I know that I have life. And because I don't know what's going to happen afterwards. I think it'll be nothing, but I'll try to live my best life and do the most I can here. And if there's extra, hey, cool, I get round 2. But if there's not, at least I've done my best here. So that's what I reckon happens when you die. There's no heaven or nirvana, purgatory or limbo or Valhalla or Taco Bell or whatever you envision as your afterlife. But yeah, that's what I think. What do you reckon when we die, man?
Yeah, well, like I used to ponder this for a while, because I was heavily into like a lot of sciencey stuff, and like I didn't really get into religion, but I quite liked the idea of like reincarnation. And then later on in life I got into science, and I don't like I need to polish up on my chemistry and physics, but and I don't know if they can make something out of nothing. But from my understanding is that the matter of the universe is constant. So if we die and we leave Earth, like we become something else.
Soil.
Yeah, maybe like I
food.
kind of think about like Lion King, and there's that circle of life. Yeah. It's kind of like that for me. Like I think, and I'm kind of like you. Like if once you're done, and that's it. I do like the idea of like how like being reincarnated and having another crack at life and like doing it better than you did before, and it kind of lines up with like with the science thing, how the matter is constant. So when you do die and you eventually decompose and you're reborn as another child somewhere else, and you know, like I don't know. I've never really thought about it too deeply. I've always kind of thought about it like in these grand ideas, and it's just through discussion and like I guess like more of a pipe dream.
Yeah.
Like the way that I would like it to be, not necessarily have I thought about how it is.
Or you think it is.
Yeah, or what it actually is. It's just more about I like different things, like the reincarnation, and then maybe just being something constant, or you know, we're going to heaven. Or like I do like all of those ideas, but as to which one it is, I don't know. Yeah. And it's interesting that you talk about all of that stuff, man, because I'm not going to pump up the brand because I absolutely hate it. Well, actually, to be fair, they're a really good vacuum cleaner. But I used to go around and try and demo this vacuum cleaner and get people to sell it. And I did it to this guy, and he was in the gang, but he was super intelligent. And so we got talking about religions, and he'd read every book because he's trying to find himself. He's like, I've been in the gang for 21 years, man, and you know it hasn't really worked out for me. And he's like, so I'm trying to find an alternative way. And he'd read books on every single religion known to man. And he at the end of the day, he said, man, you know what the deal is? And I was like,
tell me.
Well, I don't know. Do tell me. He's like, doesn't matter which God. Everyone's like, this is the God. Every religion's like, this is the God. This is the God. You go and meet your maker, and this is the way it's going to be. But he said, you know, honest truth, bro, is that like I've realized this. He's like reading all these books that it doesn't matter which God or which religion or whatever you subscribe to, whatever it is, that's what it is for you. He's like, it doesn't matter if you believe in
Jesus versus Buddha versus Allah versus yeah,
exactly. He's like, whichever one you believe, that's the one for you. And so come the time when that's the end of your days on earth,
that's the one that turns up.
That's the one that rocks up into your life, and
that's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah,
I like that.
And I was like, bro, that's that sound, man. He's like, because every religion says that this is
my one true God is the one, or my gods are the only ones.
Exactly, unless you subscribe to like Buddhism, who they like are aware of the other, so they're probably the only religion that acknowledges other religions.
I think Baha'i faith are a bit like that too. They kind of take a little bit from everybody. Oh, interesting, man. Did you sell him the vacuum cleaner after all that?
No, I definitely knew he wasn't going to buy it, for sure.
You just wanted to chat.
Basically, I think he was just lonely. He had an ankle bracelet on, and he was like, well, company's coming to me. I'll have a chat. So
that's quite cool. I really like that, actually.
He got a cool...
Each to their own.
Yeah, and he definitely got a sweet-ass carpet clean, so...
Yeah. Oh, everyone wins. Oh, no, it's interesting, like, speaking about religion and what people think, and other people think, I did a bit of research, because I've gone down the Wikipedia hole a few times, and I read about this really interesting thing of self-mummification.
Yeah.
So basically a way to preserve yourself, and it's called, I'll butcher the name, but Soku Shinbutsu, and it means the practice of Buddhist monks observing like an absence of food, and it's like a meditative phase to the point where they die, and they actually self-mummificate themselves. So they spend months and months preparing themselves, and they like meditate every day, and they stop eating food, and they only eat like pine needles and seeds and bark, and then they restrict their water intake to basically nothing to start self-mummificating their body while they're alive. So they strip all the moisture out of their body, and then they go and they sit in a tomb. It's different for different like countries, but it's mostly a Buddhist practice. And the one I read, they sit in a lotus position in a tomb, and then the other monks cover them over, and they put a little pipe out for air, and then the monk that's meditating in the lotus position, who's self-mummificated for months and months and months in preparation, they ring a bell every morning, and then when the bell stops ringing, they remove the pipe and seal the tomb, and then they wait like a couple of months, and then they open it, and then the body's meant to have like mummified itself, and it's one way of reaching, do they do Nirvana? I forget.
Yeah, they try and find that higher plane. Yeah, I'm not sure what it's
like
called.
the ultimate way to reach there is just like, they basically kill themselves by starving themselves in the pursuit of this new life after death. It's the most interesting way to do it. Because it's also fascinating, different cultures and religions, and
that is fascinating.
Because you think like we would, if my mum or dad said, "Oh, I'm going to go do this," I'd be like, "No, you're going to die. That's horrible." Like, but then obviously these Buddhist monks all thought, "Oh no, that's great. They're going to go into the next stage of their life," and they would have been all good with them essentially killing themselves, and they probably even applauded it in some ways because they're reaching that next stage. So just the way that different people approach it's really interesting.
Yeah, man, I don't imagine that's a fast process.
No.
First of all, it takes discipline and commitment to get to that stage. And how, like even the act in itself, like working out that process over time, that has to happen in life. And so they're obviously aware that
they're going to die.
They are au fait with death, and so they're actively investigating and seeking it in waking life to become. I don't know if they necessarily are dying though, are they? In their eyes.
Oh, in their eyes, probably not. They're probably just going on to the next stage.
It's just the next phase of their spirit or whatever.
The existence or whatever it means. Yeah.
So maybe to them, death is not death. Yeah, it's just a natural progression of life, or like you say, existence. But man, that is definitely
crazy.
Next level. It's because effectively, if we put it in like societal terms, what they're doing is basically euthanasia.
Well, it's probably more assisted suicide because they're not. It's not necessarily anyone else that's killing them. Yeah, I suppose it's like where do you define the killing? Like putting them in the tomb. I suppose but they got oxygen. Yeah, it's where do you define the life and death even in that?
Yeah, and like they're obviously completely cool with it because they've got people who will remove the straw and seal the tomb,
and then open it up later.
Yeah, and then come back and what do you do with the mummified dude?
They
stay.
Oh, there's been things where like they've found golden Buddhas, the traditional shape of a Buddha, and they found inside is actually one of these mummified monks have been cast into gold, and there's some on show in various temples, like behind glass panels, and they look freakishly like intact, and sometimes it doesn't work out. Like if they don't do it properly, then they do rot and decay. But if it's done properly, they mummify themselves. It's just so intense.
See that in itself, being the fact that we can't put a pyramid together using modern technology, I find it hard to believe that they knew about their process without having known anything really about physics,
chemistry and biology and
all of it, and then doing it. So I feel like someone else has given them the heads up as to what death is all about.
Episode 15.
Yeah.
Ancient
aliens.
We keep saying that, actually.
We keep talking about that. We're going to have to talk about it at some stage.
It's just a fascinating approach to death. Because like I say, and I'm trying to contrast our contemporary Western idea of, someone passes away, heaven or nothing, and then, you have like a one-day funeral and a wake, and then that's it. Comparing that with that kind of approach to death and the funeral and the aftermath of death, because every culture and religion and country kind of approach it differently. There's another one, I think, where is it? I think it's Mongolia or Tibet, something like that. They have sky burials, sky burials?
Yeah.
They're quite cool. So once you die, they believe like your matter or your body returns to Mother Nature, and they go take your body into the mountains and they cut you into pieces, and then carrion birds like vultures come and eat the bones clean, and then they take the bones and go bury them. But you effectively get eaten by wild creatures and get taken into the mountains, which is also kind of cool.
Yeah, circle of life, bro.
Yeah.
That's what it is, man. Like, how many chickens have you been eating lately, and they're going to get poultry feed from medical and, feed the next generation, so... Yeah,
because our Western idea is that, you either get put in the ground and you get a little gravestone, or you get cremated. That's kind of what we go through. And personally, and this is my next kind of part, and just so it's on record somewhere in case something happens to me, but what I want to happen when I die is that I reckon just cremate me, man. Like, I don't like the idea of burial. I think it's kind of a bit gloomy and a bit glum, and the idea that you could visit a gravestone and kind of, in a way, negatively remember or know what's gone or who's been lost, I don't like. But the idea of a cremation and then like some kind of party or celebration afterwards, I think I would like for myself. And definitely, and I'm saying this on the podcast so that it's official, take my ashes and bake them into a lasagna, please.
Bake them into lasagna.
And then I want my friends and family to eat my Maddie lasagna. No, I'm joking.
But I was just thinking about it. I was just thinking about who would attend and who to actually eat that.
I reckon Chuck would probably have a slice.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I don't like. I reckon if you said this is Maddie lasagna, we checked his ashes, and you were like, he was always a joker, that guy, and then eat it.
And it would be actually me.
Yeah, and it would be you, and then all those guys become cannibals. But
that's a real circle of life, because then I live through others. Now I reckon for me cremation, passing through others, but cremation and then a bit of a party and then just move on. Like, why dwell too much on the fact that I'm gone? Just like move on. So that's future family. Chuck me in the river or something with my ashes, or
don't forget to put that Yahtzee note in there.
Oh God.
Put that one back in.
Anyway, what do you reckon for yourself?
For me, man, I've thought about it, and I've always been a fan of cremation, partly for two reasons. Like, burying such a, like, in my eyes, it's a waste, because you've got to go and find that valid space. Someone's got to dig down. You put in a headstone that no one visits, that kind of thing. Whereas, like, I like to think that if I got cremated and then scattered anyway, it doesn't even matter. Like, at that stage, I'm up to, like, it's up to the winds to take me wherever they want to take me.
What about 5 crossroads? You just bring me around the roundabout.
Yeah, hey man, yes, wherever, like, like, I'm not. I don't know. I'm not overly attached to life.
Do you think your family would have a place that they'd want to take you, like your home?
Yeah, maybe.
Or like a mountain, or like a river at your hometown or something, like in Gizzy?
Yeah, potentially. Like, that's a big thing with, like, multicultures, that you tend to be buried, like, where your tribal roots are. So, for sure, I'm sure it may not happen any later in life, partly because all the people who would have that link and want to maintain that link are probably going to be gone before I am. So, yeah, like, they probably could. I'm not sure, man. I'm not too fussy.
You're not too fussy?
Yeah, I prefer to be, like I say, I prefer to be cremated and then just scattered, and wherever that is wherever those people want me to be scattered. So if it's down the toilet, then so be it. If it's, they want to paddle, they want to paddle out to the ocean, all good.
leave it up to the family. I suppose we're gone anyway, so it doesn't really matter, eh?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I guess as far as my funeral is concerned, I want it to be a party. Like, I don't want it to be.
I agree,
let's do
man.
this die, man. It's like celebrate the life.
Have a laugh.
Celebrate the fact that you guys are still alive, and you can do something about enjoying life as opposed to mourning. Like my 38 years, or if we're talking about average lifespans from back in the day, my 36 years of average living life. Oh, this dude's great. He worked a 9-to-5 job and fathered 2 kids.
Let's look at some funny photos from your old Facebook or your old Bebo. Have a caramel slice and a coffee and go home, man.
Yeah,
like, just
exactly,
move on.
man. Like, so, yeah, but I and my mum was, I think this comes from my mum because she was always like, because she was the closest one to where her father was buried, so she was always the one that went and cleaned the headstone, and it was a chore for her because everyone else lived outside of Gisborne. So she kind of saw the cemetery as like a negative thing because then she'd have to go back and be reminded that her grandfather died of poisoning her father, died of poisoning.
Oh man, really?
She had to clean it, and
that's right.
Yeah. Well, it's just one of those cases like the Roundup case in America, and that dude got paid out. So basically, come out and said, "This is the spray that we're going to use. It's really good. It kills all this stuff. Completely safe." And then 2 years later, it's like, "Oh, don't touch this stuff with your hands." And so, what if my grandfather's been touching that stuff for 2 years straight, and then he's getting sick all of a sudden. So,
yeah, that's right.
That's life, man. But yeah, for her it was a chore, and then she was just always like, "Oh, just get cremated. You can have your ashes on the fireplace, and like remember them that way." And
Make sure the kids don't knock it off or something.
Yeah, because we've got like we buried our first 2 dogs, and then we cremated the second 2, and then it became a fight like who wanted to put the ashes in the room. It's like, oh no, me and Tyke were way better friends than you and Jock. He should be in my room, and then he's still in your room, and you look up every now and then, and just
still have that memory.
You have a memory back of something else, but. Yeah, I prefer not to be buried just because it's time consuming.
It was interesting. I went to Samoa recently, and they had, outside of everyone's house, they had huge, like monuments and burial. I don't know how to describe them, but they were like obviously where they buried ancestors, like grandparents and things. And they were just these huge. Like they'd have quite a small, ramshackle house, but then this really elaborate, fancy tomb. Oh yeah, like a tomb.
Yeah.
And I always found that quite interesting because some of the houses were, they're obviously not well off financially, but they'd spent all this time, effort, and money building these really elaborate shrines to the deceased. But it's like, well, couldn't you take that money and like fix your roof? It seems a little bit wasteful in a way, but that's obviously how they do it, and far be it from me to criticise that. But yeah, it was just interesting to see the contrast with their culture and their religion.
Yeah, I don't know if burial is necessarily born out of like a process of death. I wonder if it was like, so back in the day when we were cannibals and cavemen and stuff, and if if you're fighting for territory and you killed someone and you left that person to die, that then attracted a saber-toothed tiger that's going to come and eat the rest of your family. So I wonder if it was just out of necessity. You bury it, and there's like, it smelt, so you got rid of it. It's like almost like just a thing to do.
Like a waste management.
Yeah, kind of.
I mean, if you're sitting around the fire and old Greg dies at the ripe old age of 29, you can't just leave him by the fire in your camp. You've got to put him somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So like Vikings, I don't know, they might be just getting this from the movies, but I think they'd put them on boats and then burn them.
Yeah, that's the traditional Viking funeral. I think there's a bit more to Norse funerals because I did a bit of research on it. It's more than just the Viking funeral, the traditional one we think about. But yeah, much like the Egyptians, I think they had this idea of taking things with them. And I know people, sometimes like wives or mistresses would go on the boats with the deceased, and they would also die at the time, Yeah, no, it's interesting.
If I'm a wife, I'm definitely sending the mistress saying, like, you take that cheating bastard to your next life.
Well, that's probably the done thing back in that day, all the Jarls. Other topics and kind of relating to death, and you spoke about it before, about euthanasia. How do you feel about that?
I'm all for it, man. Because like you say, it's that bird thing. You don't want to see any more suffering. No one deserves to suffer. for any period of time and whatever it is. So I think euthanasia is a good thing as long as and it's hard to test a person's sound mind.
Yeah.
Because everyone's different and perceptions are different and the way that people think are different. So, but I think if it's something definite, you can 100% say that is going to be the cause of their death, and they are on board with euthanasia, then I think it should be allowed. In my eyes,
it's a very controversial topic, and you can
definitely.
totally understand, because especially like you consider there's an elderly person who says, nah, my time's up, I've got this terminal disease, I want to end my life, and then the family are like, no, we, granddad, we want you around, and so then that must be really difficult. I watched a really excuse me, confronting documentary once with Terry Pratchett, the author. What was it called? I wrote it down. Oh, I forget. I wrote it down somewhere. But he, Choosing to Die, yeah. And because he got diagnosed with, what did he get dementia or Alzheimer's, something to that effect. Or Parkinson's, actually, sorry, I think.
Yeah.
And he was kind of the mind that he didn't want to die on the terms of the disease. He wanted to... Well, he was kind of exploring it, I guess, but it followed the journey of a few people who chose when to end their lives on their own terms, and some who didn't. Like, there was a guy who was quadriplegic, so he wasn't could have moved from the neck down, and he could have ultimately kind of ended his own life, but he chose not to. And then there was someone who had, again, some kind of mental illness, Alzheimer's or something, and he wanted to die before the disease took, his mind. And I think they would like fly to Sweden or something where they have quite lax laws, and they would basically have assisted suicide there. And it actually showed some guy doing that, like going through
really?
and him dying. And I was like, it's really heavy, man, because you see him, he eats like a chocolate and it's got whatever in it, and you see him like die, and his wife's there, and like he's in this little like hotel where they do it, and it's quite confronting, but very powerful, and a good debate to be had. But personally, I'm for euthanasia. I think, much like your dog who broke his back, or any animal for that instance, we very quick to go, well, your dog's old and the quality of life's really poor, probably want to think about putting it out of misery. But then as soon as you have a human, you're like, let's string them along for as long as we can, put them on life support. And so I think in all fairness, it's probably, we're at the age where medicine can like really keep people alive, but we should really question, is it worth it for that quality of life? Obviously, we're not just going to kill people left, right and centre. It has to be an informed medical decision by quite a few people, and there needs to be consent and thought and due process. But I think for what it's worth, I think it's something we should definitely do.
Yeah, well, interesting you say like quality of life, because I reckon that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Like that quadriplegic guy, if he doesn't have anyone around him to support him, look after him, his quality of life is pretty poor. Like, let's be honest, he's got to get into a chair, he's got to get fed.
He can't do anything himself.
He can't leave the house and go and just cruise out to the park and enjoy like being outside on a nice summery day. But then again, like he wanted to live. So that's where it comes down. It comes down to the individual, but I think quality of life comes into it, because I would rather, if it was like, say if it's me and I've got terminal cancer and I'm going downhill, I would prefer that my son saw me as a healthy version, as opposed to that guy that just faded away over time and then passed away. And it can be long, like dying, like with the monks, and they take a long time and prep themselves. That's over a period of months. Like something that's terminal could take months, years. Why would you want to drag out that pain and suffering for your family when if you could like effectively end it a lot quicker, and everyone gets to move on with their lives and be in celebration.
Especially if it's terminal and you're beyond modern medicine, and there's nothing to be done.
And like even medicine, like at some stage we've got to draw the line there and go, okay, great, you can save me, but don't genetically change anything about me. I came into this world this way, and it's obviously meant to be. That's what's written in the genetic. Unless you can definitively say your cancer was caused by KFC, then I'm going to take that one on the chin, because I had a lot of KFC through my life.
Maybe that could be the new poison thing.
Yeah. So Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you say who can and can't, but on the flip side of that, we've still got states in America that are saying, "Oh, you've committed a heinous crime. We're going to end your life. We're going to put you on death row."
But then if you're really terminally ill, you get to keep on going.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, well, we can say that this guy, he robbed a store and he shot 5 people. He definitely doesn't deserve to live. But we're going to say to someone who's on their way out, "Oh, you can't end your life because you can still breathe. You haven't done anything wrong."
And in America, not only that, but then you've got to pay for all the medical care to keep you just alive. Or if you don't, I suppose that's in a way euthanasia if you just don't pay your hospital bills.
Yeah. So, there's arguments to be had for and against. I think, like you say, we're talking about that choice thing, right? People deserve to have a choice, I think. And people do deserve it. And like suicide is the alternative to that again, where people are actively attempting to end their lives. And that comes down to partially quality of life, but also comes down to their perspective of how they're viewing that quality of life. And it could be down to that, to the things around them that are causing it, all those external factors that make someone want to do that. But yeah, for mine, in terms of euthanasia, I think it should be allowed. Obviously, given right circumstances, like a 7-year-old can't just come up and go, "I hate school. I'm out. I want to tap out, Dad or Mum." I've got a bad report card and
I'm out of this. Restart.
Yeah, or on the flip side of that, I just won under 11 trophy.
100 meter sprints.
Winks and 100 meter sprints. I'd like to
go out on the top.
Go out on top, please. So, I don't know. I definitely believe if it's something irreversible, then by all means, man. And the thing with even medical technology, it's not guaranteed. And if you wait around for the magic cure, it may come, it might not come. It might come with adverse effects, and you end up worse off. But there's so much red tape about medical stuff as well. It's like even just stem cell research is for all the benefits that has. It's morally, is it right? I don't know.
It's probably another topic in itself too. Oh, apologies, that's my dog. Hey. I talk about euthanasia because my grandmother's quite old and she lives in a home, an old folks home, and she talks about it sometimes when I'm with her. And it's funny, it's funny. I think you said earlier, don't talk about that or something. When talking about euthanasia or death, but that's what my mother says to my grandmother. She'll start going, "Oh, I think this and this," and my mother will say, "Don't talk about that. Don't talk about you dying." But when you're 85, that's kind of, I suppose that's what you think about. When you got all this time and people around you are getting to the age and passing away. And I remember she tells me about that. There's a ward, like a hospital ward in her old folks home, and there's patients with dementia, and they have no idea where they are, and they walk around holding a doll, and again, the quality of life is basically not much for them because they eat and get put in bed type thing.
Yeah, and stay confused for the majority.
And so she was saying, she would say, "Oh, if I get to that, just take me out back," type thing, and so she's very much for euthanasia, and she's someone who'd be in the position to probably think about that at the moment. I just think it's worth talking about, and it's interesting to see what family and friends say about it, because it's a good discussion, and it's an important discussion to have.
Oh, definitely. We talk about everything else under the sun, man. Kids are becoming more aware of all sorts of stuff in this day and age, and and then the age-old argument there is that you've got to educate people, and you've got to talk to people, and you've got to show them the information and let them make informed decisions. So with death, we definitely don't talk about it a lot, and some people talk about it more often than not, and most people talk about it when it's
too late.
Knocking on the door. So
and just to wrap it up, so thanks for listening, and get in touch with us. What do you have a discussion with your family members? What do you want to happen after you die? What do you think? What do you want your family members to do once they die? What do they want to do? What am I trying to say? What do what do you need to do for them in terms of their wishes and their wants for them after they die. Because you never know when your number's up. You know, it could be us tomorrow. It could be the podcast over. It could just be Hayden next week, or it could just be Maddie next week. So you never know when your number's up. So have this discussion. It's really good. And hit us on social medias. Comment. Tell us what you want to do when your time's up, and start the discussion. But also, most importantly, and I think we should start doing this. We should start issuing like a challenge. Like someone should comment something in reply to our episode. So I want you to comment what food.
We're going to like go as far. We'll pay someone $1.
Well, I'm not going to go there. I don't have $1, but I'm just to get some.
When we get our first Patreon subscriber, we're going to pay someone $1.
I want you to comment on this episode wherever you are, not Spotify, but YouTube or wherever. I want you to comment what food or item would you like to be baked into once you're cremated. That's what I want to hear. So I'm going lasagna. What would you get baked into or made into?
Definitely a caramel slice.
Oh, they would actually be pretty good. They would hide the ash quite nicely, I feel.
And it's just it's one of my favourites. And who doesn't like caramel slice, man?
You'd have to go on the biscuity base and then maybe sprinkle it on top, I reckon.
Just all through those 3 layers, eh?
Well, I'd have
base, caramel, topping.
I'd have a slice of that. I'd probably have 2.
Right. And then they remember that and be like, that's some good slice. Yeah.
Alright, so on that note, getting baked in lasagnas and caramel slices. That's it for episode, 5?
Yep, 5.
Jeff, thank you for that. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm Maddie.
I'm Hayden.
And we're DNM.
And feel free to slide on it.